No,
Commissioner Van Sant is not coming?
Commissioner Van Sant is not coming.
Oh.
He has repairs going on in his house that he has to be present for.
And he won't be showing up at the end?
He plans to not come.
Okay.
So we'll deal with recusals as we get there.
We could even ask Russ for his input, I suppose.
On just the one item. There's just one item that will be.
Well, there's 2 signs, it looks like, right?
2 signs. Oh, shoot. Yeah. Okay.
I don't own the real estate. Does that matter?
I guess it still
Still does.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's an important, it would be very good though, if you didn't have to recuse yourself for sign approvals downtown.
Right.
And it might be a good idea to just get the final seal of approval from the legal department
Yeah.
regarding that.
There might be ways around it, just, you know, in instances like this where otherwise we can't take action. So.
Yeah.
This is an informal chat, but welcome to the Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, November 17th. We're called to order. I'll read the mission statement just because I'd like to. The City of Nevada City is dedicated to preserving and enhancing its small-town character and historical architecture while providing quality public services for our current and future residents, businesses, and visitors. And this Planning Commission meeting convenes on the ancestral territories of the Nevada City Rancheria and Nisenan tribe. So let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you like to lead us, Mary? Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
My mic was off. Now it's on.
Chair Nye, could I make a comment, please?
Yes, sir.
I have a disclosure. I am having trouble with the level of internet connectivity today. So I need to leave my video off or I'm afraid I'm going to be cut out.
So we can't see you.
I
Correct?
can see you. I got a hint from somebody the other day when this happened that Xfinity came through and upgraded the system and it hasn't worked right since. So they suggested shutting off the video seems to help reduce the bandwidth necessary. So I'm listening carefully.
Okay, thanks. And that's a disclosure from our attorney, Russell Hildebrand. So roll call, please, Amy.
Commissioner Brown?
Here.
Commissioner Ermshar?
Here.
Commissioner Cobden is absent and Commissioner Van Sant is absent. Chair Nye?
Here.
3 present.
Okay, let's begin with, we keep beginning, don't we? But it's time for public comments for items not on the agenda. If anyone has any comments for items not on the agenda.
Commissioners, Mr. Falcone, Amy. Now that I've been hanging out at the top of Broad Street, it's come to my attention that Firehouse Number 2 is in state of terrible disrepair. And I've taken it upon myself to start talking about it. And I'd like to get the Historical Society involved and everybody else and get the building repaired and usable. And perhaps get the old hand fire carts that are over in the Pioneer Park there under that shed. Perhaps get those cleaned up, get them restored, and have those inside the firehouse for all the people that stop by there and have no idea what's inside. That 1930s engine in there is pretty special, but I think the hand carts would be better since that was what was in there when they built it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment for items not on the agenda? And is there anyone online who would like to make a comment?
If anybody on Zoom would like to make a virtual or make a comment, please raise your virtual hand. I'm not seeing. Oh, here. No one raising their hand.
And I have a question of Bill Falcone. The firehouse it received some restoration work, didn't it? A couple of years ago?
Maybe that's a stretch, I think, Tom. Well, we've done maintenance on it over the years. We have never really restored it or done any work to that. We've done restoration work to firehouse number 1. The firehouse number 2, we rebuilt some of the balcony, is what we did. We did, but it needs work. It needs, the access is poor, the downstairs needs to be kind of remodeled. It needs to, there's the old facade that used to be the original entryway before they put the wider doors, and it's still in the back. It should be brought back up and the doors in front taken out and restored. Balcony needs work, there's no doubt about it. And so does the upstairs, especially the transom windows and that sort of thing. So yeah, I don't think we've done a lot of work to it since, and I know we haven't.
I thought you might be the guy who would know.
We
since you're here.
did rebuild that tower on top where the bell is, and that's a real bell in there. And
That's what I remember.
So we did that. We did, and we totally rebuilt that. So that is true, yeah. That's really the only real item. And we did some work to the railings and everything on the balcony in my lifetime.
Thank you. So we have a consent calendar. Would anyone like to discuss or remove any item from the consent calendar for discussion? Any commissioners? No? All right.
If we need to remove, if I have to recuse myself,
Oh.
or we just,
Are you in close proximity to any of those?
the Broad Street signs?
Oh, not the signs, the consent.
Right, to the consent,
Oh, sorry.
the first 5 items.
No.
Tree removals, all tree removals, and approval of the meeting minutes. So, motion to approve these?
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, nice.
You looked busy.
Well, sorry.
Motion passes. You were saying?
Oh, I was just forgetting to ask for the roll call, so, thank you.
Now we are at signs, historic district signs, and this might be a good time to ask Russell about Commissioner Ermshar's need to recuse herself because she has a business in proximity to both of them. And is that a conflict of interest?
So I think you're within 500 feet of both of these businesses, is that right? So Russ, we have 3 commissioners, and one of them is within 500 feet. One of them owns a business within 500 feet of the 2 sign permits.
And today with the recusal, we wouldn't have
Yeah.
a quorum
We
to
won't-
approve those.
We won't have a quorum to take action. What's
Right,
your advice?
Right, so this is for the action only on a sign?
Yes, this one, we'll have a different one come up later in the meeting unless Amy Cobden shows up. But yes, this one is for both items 6 and 7, both signs that within the historic district.
And we're not, Vice Chair Cobden's not going to join us later?
She may be able to.
Well, I would suggest we try and do 2 things. Is there any possibility we can get Commissioner Van Zandt to zoom in? And I would move these to the end of the agenda to see if Commissioner Cobden has a chance to join us. So you have a quorum.
The very next item, we will run into this same problem, but with a different commissioner. And those are the last real action items. Those are the only real action items from the commission today. So,
See if you can get hold of Peter.
yeah, I can email him, but it might be easier if you can call him. It might be faster, rather.
I'll get his number.
I
What
do
is
I do
the-
too. I'll contact him. We're pausing for a moment to solve this quorum issue.
Dilemma.
Yeah.
What, on the next item, this is 215 Bourbon Hill?
Yes, so Commissioner
What's
Nye
the-
owns a property within 500 feet of this property.
Okay.
for what we can move ahead for. We can't, we have recusals, so we can't take action.
On the next three items.
On the next three items, but we have a presentation by Bill Falcone on Felix Gillet trees, and
There are a couple other things before that, but we'll give Bill as much time as you would like on
Yeah,
that, I think.
so with no objections from the House, what do you got, Bill? You're on.
I don't know what you've seen or what you have in front of you or what Amy gave you, but to give you a view in the audience and for the people that will see this later, which is nice about the modern world, people can look at this, Peter and Amy can see it later. Amy and I were given the task of looking into the history and where we stand with the Gillette Nursery, and it was actually Gillette and Parsons, and I'm trying to gather my thoughts, but over the last 100 years, between 1870 and 1970, there was a major nursery in Nevada City, and it's up on the top of Nevada Street, it's literally between Nevada Street and the HEW building. That hillside there was called the Barron Hill Nursery. It was not called the Felix Gillet. But Felix Gillet came here in the late 1850s from France, and he was actually a barber. That's how he made his living. And but he always had interest in the nursery business, and actually his initial interests were actually in silkworm and silk production. That's what he was trying to promote it, instead of coming from the Far East to be here in the Western Hemisphere. So that was his real push at the beginning. And so what he did was, he was here for a number of years, between 1858 or 9 and into about 1863. Then he went back to France, and with some connections he had, he was able to secure some actual plants that came from Europe that were not here in the fruit and nut business, like chestnuts, walnuts, even grape, pears, apples, a lot of things, cherries, apricots. So then he returns and he buys what he calls the Barron Hill Nursery. The reason he buys it, it's as my dad would say when I was a kid, if it didn't have timber on it, it didn't have mining ability, or if it wasn't an agricultural piece of ground, it was considered worthless. And so they had logged it off, and so it was just kind of a worthless piece of ground up there. So he bought it, was about 20 acres. It actually encompassed the hillside between Nevada Street, Grove Street, and Willow Valley. So you can get a picture where that is. Yeah. But he didn't use all of it. He used probably, the reason I know this is because my mother's sister, my aunt, who was the city clerk in Nevada City, she lived there on that piece of property. Her and her husband had bought it from Gillet's next generation, Parsons, that ran it. Anyway, so I used to go there when I was a kid, and there was still a lot of Felix Gillet stuff left that had gone wild. And you can still find it all around town. Amy and I made a kind of a inventory of stuff. We walked around town until we found this stuff. But anyway, so Gillet comes in, and he's really a pioneer in the fruit nut business. I mean, he's kind of it. There was another guy in Santa Rosa that was kind of a contemporary of his, but Gillet was right up on top. And so he actually, he actually introduces some of the things that we still have today, including the walnut, very famous, and we're big into walnuts, you all know that, right down here below us, and from Marysville to Chico, it's a lot of walnuts. There's a lot of walnuts up in the Willamette Valley up to in Oregon, that's all Felix Gillet. A lot of filberts too, which is a hazelnut, you know, the French call it a filbert, the English call it a hazelnut. But anyway, so Gillet does this, and he's big into it, and he's big into it between about 1870 to about 1900. And then he dies in 1908, and his wife remarries, and I think the guy who she remarried kind of ran the place, but I don't think they were in the nursery business. And Charlie Parsons comes along, and you don't ever hear Charlie Parsons' name, but he ran it. Gillette ran it for about 40 years or 45, and Parsons runs it for about 50. Parsons would never be anything without Gillet, but Parsons built on what Gillet did. Now, Parsons was more of a ornamental guy than he was the nut and fruit guy. And like I say, I have ancestors here since the 1880s, so they came in at the same time as Gillet did. And people like my dad, if it didn't grow fruit or vegetables or something you could use, they didn't care about it. Maple that turned your colors in the fall, it wasn't of any interest to them. And but Parsons kind of introduces a lot of ornamentals. And I know that because he used to propagate them, and there's a lot of them around town. And the color you see in town is basically since, maybe even in, even like Jennifer over there, or, when you were real young, there wasn't as much color in town. There was Nevada Street, and that was about it, which is up by the Gillet Nursery. But a lot of the color you see around has been planted in the last 50 years. And Caltrans did landscape the freeway, which is kind of an unusual thing for its time, but Nevada City pushed for that. And so what you've got is these heritage trees, so to speak, that some of them and many of them have repropagated themselves. Like Amy and I were looking, like the walnut, like the chestnut, like even the filbert, like the ornamentals, like the tulip tree,
Linden and elm. Linden?
Lindens, the elms, some of those. Surprisingly, there's a number of elms that were left around here, and there was a big elm killing in about the 50s or somewhere, all around the country in North America. But for some reason, the elms lasted along here. So Parsons runs the place from about 1915 until 1965. So he not only grows and improves on the Gillette nuts and fruits, but then he also sells ornamentals around. So, Amy and I are looking for some input from either the public or the commission or anybody to kind of, if you had an area where you propagated this stuff, you'd have to have somebody taking care of it. You just do. The weeds will choke it out. If it doesn't rain at the right time, they'll dry up and so on and so forth. Gillette had that problem when he first started. He had a lot of problems keeping stuff alive. He imported stuff from Europe. He had to, because there was nothing. And then as he started to fool with this stuff, he found that he didn't have enough water, and that was a big problem for him, if you read a lot of his accounts and stuff. Amy and I were able to obtain one of the nursery's catalogs. There's a few of them around. This one happens to be 1926, but if you look at it, you'll notice there's a lot of chestnuts and a lot of walnuts, a lot of that sort of stuff in there.
And the Felix Delay Institute actually had all of the, or like about 5 or 6 of the Delay's original catalogs too. So I did download all those so that we have those.
Yeah. So what we should, I guess, Amy and I are looking for input, but kind of as a suggestion or a place to start is I think if we lose a tree that's a major one, a chestnut or something, that we would, through an arborist, maybe with some city funds, we'd collect clippings and put them maybe in Pioneer Park or someplace or all over town, just because the town is full of everything. And if you walk around town, you'll find tulip trees that are 4 feet through, and you'll find Sequoia giganteas. They're all over the place, and they're not native either. They never were this far north. So, but they grow like a weed, and they planted them when they built the freeway. My mother told me that they planted a bunch of them in 1900 when California was 50 years old, and that's where you see a lot of them. See, and it's not unusual to see a sequoia in town that's 6 foot through in different areas. So I think that's where we should go with that. I don't think we have to make it a major thing, but there's so much stuff that you see in these things that are kind of gone, And I guess that's just the way it is. And a lot of them are shrubs and that sort of thing. And maybe they're around and I don't recognize them all that well. But Gillette even fooled with grapes and had a little vineyard up there. He had everything. And Amy and I were looking at that the other day. He had cork trees so that he could make cork for the wine bottles. And, they kind of did their own thing, Cork is very common in California. There's a lot of cork, brought in mainly by the Portuguese and that in Spanish. And it looks like an oak tree. Sometimes a lot of people can't even tell, but it's a cork.
That is an oak tree.
Pardon?
The cork is an oak tree. It's a type of oak.
Is an oak?
Yeah.
Okay, well, Amy knows all of that more than I do. But that's the history of Gillette and Parsons. I think, and Amy and I have had this heated conversation, I think that the world would not have started without Gillette, but I think that Parsons made as much of a contribution as Gillette did in just a different way, And Gillette never called himself the Gillette Nursery. It was the Barron Hill Nursery. It was Parsons who named the Gillette Nursery. And Parsons recognized the pioneering ability of Gillette and Gillet, or however you call it, and went on from there. So that's kind of an overview.
Can I ask what ought to be a basic question? I'll pretend to be the guy who doesn't know anything. I'm not pretending necessarily.
Maybe you don't have to pretend.
Okay, yeah, exactly. Why should we care about Gillet? And now,
Well,
what I'm getting from the presentation, I'm asking on behalf of the public.
Here's what I said in the end of the report. I said, in the century between 1850 to 1940, it was known as the golden age of the mother lode, okay? That's where we get the fancy houses and stuff. The fact it created a neat preservation of buildings, affects our time. So I think, and I believe this, and maybe, Tom, you don't, or maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but I put on there, we should endeavor to treat our unique trees and shrubs that we do have, that have an old-time heritage, in the same way as we don't have to get super problematic with it, but I think it's not a bad idea to keep these chestnuts that are out there and these walnuts and some of these ornamentals. I mean, Amy and I went around, we started looking, gosh, there was all kinds of stuff that you'd be surprised that don't belong here, you know? I mean, the Atlas cedar, you know that Atlas cedar that's all the one that they lost up there on at Bennett Street? Those came out of the Gillette nursery. And they were, you know, they're kind of a unique thing. And probably the most classic one is in the yard adjacent to the Episcopal Church on Nevada Street. That's an enormous Atlas cedar. And so, yeah, Tom, I believe that it's something we should do, if you're asking me.
So your point is, if I can interpret, I'm playing interviewer here, that the trees from this nursery, the trees and other shrubs, are also historic artifacts and should be preserved along with architecture.
That's my
As
opinion.
part of the-
That's
as part of
not
the-
necessarily,
the package.
you know, I'm
Yeah.
thinking, I'm not thinking we don't need to keep, you know, if there's a problem tree, you need to cut it down, but I think that maybe we should, I don't even know how to answer that exactly, but I just think it's part of who we are.
And if I can add, you know, I think if you look back at the history, Gillet was responsible for bringing a number of fruit and nut varieties to California and up and down the West Coast. So he was sort of the pioneer in that, particularly with walnuts. And I think you could say he was the father of that industry that is now really big in California. So that
And
would
there's
be
still
my.
a lot of walnuts in town, a lot of walnuts surprisingly. And I'm thinking that some of them are second generation. I don't think they're all Gillette, you know, propagated. I think they're Gillette propagated and then the tree repropagated itself, you know. I think it's that sort of thing. I don't know that as a fact. I do know that when I was a kid, there was a lot of big old walnuts around. And they must have been part of the original ones, so they're pretty much gone. Yeah, I do think it's important, Tom. That's why we did what we did. I don't think it's something that we have to, you know, die for or whatever, but I think it's something that planning commissions and in the future should look at that sort of stuff. And if it's a kind of a unique thing, you know, like Amy and I were talking a few days ago, there's a number of magnolias around Nevada City. Now, magnolia is about as uncommon a tree in the West Coast as you'll ever get. You know, magnolias come basically out of the South, and for some reason, this area, if you'll notice that Nevada City has a kind of a environs that's a little different than the other parts of the Sierras. It's kind of the way it sits. And I think that a lot of these species can survive because of the uniqueness of the area. So anyway, that's what we did. That's what we worked on. And if you need any information on Charlie Parsons or Felix Gillette, you know, that I've got it all here for you, and all the research we did. And, you know, Parsons dies in 1968, and Gillette dies in 1908, so you got an idea what the timing is.
One more question. So there, or maybe not just one. There must be a lot of individuals around that are, I mean, individual trees that aren't identified as coming from that nursery. Yeah, and I wonder if there's a horticultural resource who is available, would be available somehow to identify trees and shrubs that are suspects, and you know, like identify trees that ought to be preserved that are being overlooked.
What we've been doing, so I don't know if anyone knows exactly where every Felix Gillet or Parsons tree was planted, but.
Though I'll interrupt to ask,
Yeah.
it should be like clear which
I think the
ones
only thing you could
come
do,
down the lineage, you know?
I think the only thing you could do, Tom, is there's these catalogs.
Yeah.
And if you find in these catalogs that they have that species, I think you could make that connection, whether or not they bought it from somebody else or it came from someplace else.
You'll see in my staff reports when we're dealing with the Felix Gelée, I usually say we suspect it's a Felix Gelée based on the species and the size. So we're looking at, you know, how old is the tree and is the species something that would have come out of one of those catalogs? So that's, yeah.
Serial number marked on the DNA chain. Well, first of all, yeah, I think we'll have some public comment. But are there any other commissioner questions or comments regarding the bills?
I do. I'm curious, has there been any outreach to the Historical Society or Master Gardeners? I mean, these seem to be the two most likely groups who could help out with some effort in this area.
You mean in terms of figuring out a way to mitigate the loss of
To
a tree?
mitigate the losses, catalog, maybe, propagate or extend, some of these.
We haven't started a real process, or, a real effort to determine how we want to do it. I think it'll be something that comes down, maybe with some of the new strategic initiatives that we've got going on.
This is the first shot over the bow, and we'll take it from here.
Yeah.
I mean, I just, when Amy and I looked at it, and we kind of agreed, rather than let it die, we should think about this sort of thing. And Gillette was much more prominent than I ever thought he was, and there was something I was reading earlier. I'm not sure that I was reading this earlier today, that's how I know it. It talks about, this is a little talking about Gillette, and it said, so well-known a work as the Bailey's Encyclopedia of Horticulture. Now, whoever Bailey's Encyclopedia of Horticulture is, I don't know, but yeah, something, owes its establishment to the early efforts of Joe Sexton of Santa Barbara. Now, that was some guy apparently down in the central part of the state that did stuff with Gillette, and Felix Gillette of Nevada City. The French varieties of walnuts, such as the Mayette, the Franquette, and other popular and tireless issues were the work of the late Felix Gelée in his production of this type of nut and so on. But my point is he was recognized way back as, and this was written 100 years ago. He was already recognized in those days. And he did work with what's the guy that was in Santa Rosa, the famous guy who did it with the flowers? I can't.
That was Burbank, yeah.
Yeah, Luther Burbank. Yeah, Luther Burbank and Felix Gillette, but they were doing different things.
So also, thank you, Bill and Amy, for putting this together. It's fascinating. It seems like there's more materials there too, in addition to what was shared in the packet. Could those be put on the city website? On the city website, so we could.
We had to scrape and do some work to find all this stuff.
Yeah, I think it'd be great if those were
Yeah.
available.
The catalogs.
You're right.
the-
We've got.
yeah.
If
we've got
they're
all
already
kinds
there,
of
have
stuff
links
that-
to them,
that I
where they
haven't-
are.
Yeah.
And that'd be the stuff.
Wow, there's all kinds of stuff in here I haven't even touched on, so.
Yeah,
but
great.
it's all related to the same subject.
If we're raising consciousness, it would make sense for there to be a central, information point. Yeah, great idea. Did you have a question for Bill?
I saw two hands out here that,
well,
but we're
we'll
not
have
there
a-
yet.
we'll have
Okay.
yeah.
I don't have any questions for Bill. I would say, just understanding the impetus of how it came to be and what next steps are. I'm always interested in that, whereas this is beautiful information. I appreciate the work you guys did to bring it forth. And I'm always asking myself, what am I supposed to do? How can I help?
Yeah. I don't know if we have, this might fit, I know that looking at our tree ordinance is something that we have talked about in the past, and I know council just adopted the strategic initiatives, so I have to look through, and perhaps it'll fit into one of the committees that are being formed out of that, and if that's the case, then that would be the committee that would get it started. So I'd have to just look and see. I'll talk to Sean and see if there's something that will fit into one of those categories.
I think I'd like to ask for public comment at this point.
Do you recognize me, Mr. Chair?
I do recognize you.
Richard Thomas, 214 Gethsemane Street. I guess I ignored that earlier. Following up on Mr. Gillet and Mr. Parsons, amigo Bob Contisano, well-known organic farmer, took it upon himself, I think, in the last 15, 20 years of his life to begin collecting specimens of Gillet's trees and started planting and propagating. I've never been to the site. Of course, Mr. Contisano passed away, but I have a feeling that there are still people involved with his organization that are maintaining that, and I think that would be a great adjunct to everything. And Mr. Falcone's presentation was great. And I think in history, there's two kinds of written, even oral history. And one is a broad overview, which you can wrap up in a page, and the other is the detail work that those that want more than the broad overview will go after. And Bill's overview was wonderful, but as he said, there's much more material. So I think I totally encourage him, totally encourage you in any way that you can move this forward. I think we should make a real push for our history. There's a lot more here than gold. You know, that's the part of our history that gets so much emphasis, but there's so much more here than gold.
Thank you.
And
I think that was put correctly. There's a lot more here that we can build on with just the things that we do. I'm not making light of any of that other stuff. I'm just saying, this is just one kind of an oddball thing that's been kind of overlooked, and had we not have been brought, I never gave it much thought, if I had to be honest with you. Now, when I was a kid, I could have cared less who Felix Gillet was, you know?
We have another commenter.
You know, yeah.
if I can real quick, we did get the catalogs from the Felix Gillet Institute, which is Amigo Bob's organization. And he does have some good information about Felix Gillet, good biography and that kind of thing in that. So that's a good resource.
But it's not very active anymore.
It is sometimes up and sometimes
Yeah.
down. I don't know if there's some,
Some of this stuff we got from the Historical Society, too.
yeah.
Yeah, Brian Dunbar, Bourbon Hill Road. Yeah, I was just going to expand on that. There's a Felix Gillet Institute, and they have a website. I don't know the status of who's involved now that Amigo Bob is gone.
Yeah.
But I just also want to say I appreciate this whole history and thinking about what Grass Valley has up by the old bed and breakfast on Neal Street. The big tree, it has a plaque. Says from a seed planted at the Civil War battlefield or something like that. But I would envision that we could do little plaques around the big famous trees around town. That'd be cool.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Falcone.
I think, yes, we'd like to, maybe, when you, after you think about it and digest it, we might discuss it, decide what to go do on from here to where we should do, or where we should delineate some of this stuff, or have a little blurb or something. Amy and I'll sit down and see what we can generate afterwards.
So you'll come to us with a recommendation.
I'm thinking that it would be a committee, appointed committee, and probably one of the committees that come out of
It might be
the.
nice to have somebody represented here
Yeah.
with us. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
You
thinking.
could always
So I'll-
appoint
yeah,
somebody
I'll
who's
talk to
not
Sean.
here, and then but they can't do done.
That's a good strategy. Thanks a lot for your
welcome.
work and for joining us and for like raising consciousness about this. And I'm Mr. Joe Average Citizen, kind of, in that I'm really seeing to a greater degree that it's like our architectural history.
It's just one more thing.
Yeah.
It makes us different from other places.
Well, and certainly if you took out all of the color and all of these different species and replaced it with, say, a bunch of palm trees, it would change the whole feeling of the town. So you realize how critical it is as a backdrop to the town.
And then it would be
Right?
it would be a different paradigm.
It'd be a different look.
Yeah, those people brought that stuff here, and it's still here for us. Now, it's just so happened that it's quite nice, but, you know.
And the topic is up because of the the tree, the tree on
Yeah.
Spring Street that's problematic.
That's right.
And,
That's
and,
part of the reason why we started looking at this stuff.
and we're losing a couple on Nursery Street. We're
Main-
losing.
Main Street.
Ma-
Oh, you mean from the ones?
Yeah,
that-
from-
That
from-
was on, so Nursery? Yeah,
Nursery Street,
yeah.
yeah,
Those are,
Those are elms,
elms.
yeah.
right. So, yes, very much worth paying attention to at this point.
and what's happening to a lot of these trees is they're reaching their maturity. We're losing them, so they're dying. So maybe, you know, like I say, maybe we put some in Pioneer Park, or we put some somewhere, I don't know. They're reaching towards the end. Well, I noticed that with a lot of walnuts. There was more walnuts when I was younger than there is now.
The walnuts do a pretty good job of propagating themselves.
do.
Or with the help of squirrels and
I think the
birds, I
chestnut
think.
does better, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I'm checking my device for
I know.
contact from
I'm checking my email
a
too.
couple of commissioners who aren't here. Well, we are,
I do have a couple other things to go over. So
All right.
we can, let's see, item 9.
thanks for hanging with us.
I have to leave. Brian will stay. I'm apologizing. I have to leave in 8 minutes.
Okay, sorry about that.
He will stay.
And Yenaboma Peterson, hello. Thanks for hanging with us. Yeah.
Let's see here. So if you open on item 9, so we've got the 2023 draft calendar, and it's got all the planning commission and all the city council agendas. This was just sort of a way to get ahead of having to make special accommodations for meetings that we kind of regularly move. It doesn't mean we can't move something if something comes up. But this would be, the only one that I suggested for the planning commission is because the October meeting, the last couple of years anyway, we've rearranged because it falls over the school fall break. So I'm usually the one requesting it because that's when my daughter is off. So we usually go on some kind of vacation. So I just moved it up a week. That was the only one I have for the planning commission. But if there's anything else, the council switched around some dates to Thursdays for so that they don't run into conflicts with like Victorian Christmas or hot summer nights, things like that.
So yellow indicates the ones that
A
have been moved.
change from
Right.
regular, yeah.
Right.
And so, yeah, so unless you guys have any,
Immediate conflict?
Yes,
Yeah,
then
no,
we'll
not-
just-
not
I'm
anyone
just
else?
checking them all. No?
Nothing for me.
okay. We'll recommend this, and the October date moved up a week would work for you guys, at least right now?
Yep.
And like I said, it's not set in stone, it's just, if, this is kind of gets it ahead, we'd have to change it, do a special, noticing to change it if we do want to change it from this point, but now this will go on the website, people will be notified ahead in advance.
That's
that
good.
These are
That's-
the meeting dates.
It's helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. All right.
It's like a serving suggestion on the box, like on the box of stuffing. Your stuffing is supposed to look like this,
It's
and
only
this is how our
supposed to be this
schedules.
size, yes.
Right. I thought
No.
that might help the public understand what we're doing.
No such portion size on pie, though.
Limitless. All right, what else do we have?
So the only other thing is Dean provided a summary of several housing bills that came out of this last year's state legislation. So, I think I wasn't planning on going over each one of them. I can go over them a little bit. Some of them I don't totally understand yet. And some of them won't affect us at all. They're really geared towards larger cities. But a lot of them were really sort of clarifications of existing bills, and expanding on HCD's authority to enforce things. A couple of them have to do just with reporting requirements that I have to do to the state, just making my life harder is what it sounds like it's gonna do.
And the world better.
Yes. So the state says. A couple of them have to do with, commercial, allowing some kind of affordable housing opportunities in commercial zones and mixed-use zones. A few of them will require some zoning code amendments, so I'll refer to these bills as that comes along, as we decide to change them. They did make several clarifying statements on accessory dwelling units in particular. Most of them won't affect us, although we might have to make some code changes. It sounds like there are some jurisdictions that were finding some sneaky ways to not allow ADUs, and the state is coming down pretty hard and saying, you can't use those sneaky ways anymore to disallow them. So they're just making a lot of clarification. So it won't really change the way we're doing anything. We haven't been using any of those sneaky approaches, so, but it might mean that we have to do some updates to the code. So, if, as you review them, you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me. If I can't tell you the answer, I'll reach out to Dean and Russ, and then if they can't answer it, you can go to your state legislature.
Definitely worthy of study, though. But the ADU stuff is probably going to be possibly interesting to us.
It probably won't be that interesting. It's going to maybe require some updates, but I don't think anything affects anything the way we've been applying the code. So.
Okay, and SB 9 was covered in last year's. I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So at this point, let's see. We could read the building permit report, but,
That's what I was doing.
which is actually very
It's always-
interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
No, it actually
There's
is.
a lot of new roofs happening.
I feel like roofs are, especially I guess this time of year, maybe
Tis
we
the
get a
season.
lot.
It's like, oh.
Tis the
Yeah,
season.
I'm in the
Yeah.
mood for one.
Oh, yeah.
At my house, yeah.
You're in the mood?
Yeah, definitely. It looks like we will have to continue the items on our agenda, the sign approvals and the architectural review.
Well, so Amy Cobden did tell me she thought she could be here by 3. This was a couple days ago.
What time is it?
And I told her
It's 2:30,
the agenda was pretty short. We may not even go that long, but, so I resent her something today when I realized our current conundrum. But I haven't heard from her yet. But she did say she was running a meeting until 2:30. So hopefully she's out of there now soon and she'll check her email.
Right, we
Or
can't,
text.
it seems unfair to ask applicants who've come to wait just in case,
And then not have it happen.
yeah, not have it happen in a timely way. We could have a special meeting,
Yeah,
Yep.
that's what I was just gonna suggest.
be a very short agenda, but, I mean, see if there's will to do that.
Next week is Thanksgiving, so I just worry that we'll run
Mm-hmm. I'll be out
into a
of town.
similar problem.
I'll be out of town.
I will be here, so I can certainly do it.
I can do it too.
Not on Thursday, or
I mean, I
Friday.
can do it with planning, I can squeeze something in, you know. It's not ideal, but
I'll be gone for an entire week from Tuesday, so.
Okay, so Monday would be the only day. Yeah, and we'd have time to do set notes.
Potentially dial in if necessary.
Okay. Yeah, we could-
Monday next week?
We could still zoom in, so,
but you need to make sure there's either Peter or Amy, because I couldn't do the
you still
signs.
can do, yeah, we still need to have 4 of you at least here.
With
Well, we're trying to figure out if that's the best thing to do.
Thank you, sorry.
Would Monday be the best time to do it? Unfortunately, we can't get Amy or Peter to commit to it right now.
I will commit to it, and it's not the best time, but in terms of accommodating for the public, that
Applicants here.
I would make that work.
What about doing it in the morning or something like that?
Yeah, earlier is better.
Earlier is
Like 9
better.
before the store opens is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How would that work for you guys? You're gone anyway.
I'm gone, right, or I'm flexible. So
Okay. You're flexible to Zoom in.
I'm flexible to Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're available Monday early?
Yeah, we're just visiting family, nothing firm.
I see.
On that day, so.
And that's next Monday.
That would be Monday, what day is that? That's not my calendar. Monday, the 21st.
It's tight for me. I have a work commitment, and it's all off till Tuesday. So I could Zoom in, and I'll need to recuse on one of them. Can I ask the applicants at this point if?
Yeah, let's.
So
let's
we're
sit here.
we're trying to find a way to continue and have a special meeting next Monday, and I'm wondering if that would work for all of you to be in the morning, I guess.
I can make it work.
And they can call in too if,
We're not adjourning until this afternoon after Amy can get here.
We're just not positive she will be here, so.
I can go over and get Peter if you want, but I.
Is Peter not available at all either?
He's dealing with plumbers at his house.
Like he could help. I'm sorry.
I've just received that ding
Ding.
means that Commissioner Cobden is able to zoom in.
She can Zoom in?
Yeah.
Does she need the Zoom link?
So does that make a quorum?
yep. Yeah. Well, because she can facilitate and weigh in on, is she, on the one that you have to recuse yourself from?
Yes. Let's see, she wants to know where we are in the agenda, so,
I'm sending her, well, we have to still do items 6, 7, and 8.
okay. So let's have a recess while we get this set up. Thanks for your patience.
And I did just send her the Zoom link.
Let's call it a 7-minute recess.
7 minute?
How about 15?
Of 15.
Then I can get coffee. Like Rod, I can be like Rod.
Okay,
We
all
can
right.
do 10, we can do 10.
There's a coffee back there if you want to make it. It's got the little round thing. It's not as good as the coffee down the street.
I was just thinking it might take longer even. I can just go right over to Java John's.
We'll have a 10-minute recess.
Okay,
Does anybody want coffee?
I can't do coffee.
We're back from our recess. Thanks for your patience.
I'm sorry, sir.
Our applicant for item 6 is not present, so we'll move to item 7, which is a historic sign application, or application for a sign in the Historic District at 425 Broad Street, hanging sign for headquarters.
I will recuse myself due to the proximity of my business.
Okay,
Is that serious?
thank you. And Amy Wilson, if you would, do you have an introduction?
Yes, I do. And I just, for the record, I just wanted to let everyone know that Commissioner Cobden has joined us via Zoom. She joined around 2:45. and
Welcome,
will be-
Commissioner Cobden.
Yes. And our applicant, Richard Thomas, is here. So I'll provide just a quick introduction and then let you answer any questions the commission may have. So Richard Thomas recently purchased the 560 square foot building and is proposing to use it, sorry, this is at, I really don't like at 425 Broad Street. He is proposing to use it as a flexible venue space and offering it for a rental space to accommodate pop-up retail, music studio, or as a small meeting space. This tenant space was previously occupied by My Favorite Things, the owner of which has expressed interest in renting the space from time to time as a pop-up retail kind of space. Because the business's services are not readily apparent in the listed as allowed uses in the code, Section 17.040.020, I think that's 17.40.020, sorry. The City Municipal Code does allow the Planning Commission to make a special finding when they can make a finding that it meets these several things as being consistent or similar to those that are already allowed. And so those include nature of business depends on walk-in traffic, nature provides sales tax revenue, business provides products to a broad spectrum of the general public. Proposal will not weaken the concentration and continuity of retail facilities at ground level and will not break up an important shopping frontage. If a manufacturing assembly, fabricating, or handicraft process is involved, I suppose that might be part of some of the pop-up businesses that happen there, then those shall be sold on the premises. And then he is also proposing a sign for the space called headquarters, and it looks like he has brought the board where the sign will be, and it will it'll be hanging in the exact same space as the My Favorite Things. And as I looked at the old sign, it's like slightly smaller actually than the My Favorite Things sign. Is that correct?
I think it's the same size.
Oh, it's the
I think
same
it's
size.
5 feet long and a foot deep.
Okay, I think there was like a few inches difference
That's
from.
entirely possible.
Yeah. So it will be a natural cedar with black routed lettering. It will be one-sided, 1 foot by 5 feet. It will be, the letter style will be similar to Abilene FLF, which is a recommended style in the design guidelines. There's no graphics, and the colors will be a natural cedar and black lettering. And that is all I have. Mr. Richards has provided an attachment outlining those responses to each of the questions for you to make the special finding for the use. And I'll just note that in the recommended motion, I've included the recommended or a separate finding for making that use finding. And that is all I have.
Okay, any questions of the applicant by the commission? Commissioner Cobden, anything? No.
I don't get to make my big presentation.
Now would you please make your big presentation?
Yes, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, Amy. I brought 2 examples of the sign I intend to make. This board is 6 feet long, so my sign would be a foot shorter. This happens to be pine. My sign will be cedar. And although this is not 5 feet long, I intend to make it out of 2-inch wide cedar, a foot deep and 5 feet long. Now, this cedar came from Cedar Creek Sawmill. Dave Verdon, I think everybody's familiar with Dave, and that would be where I get the 5-foot piece and where I continue to get other wood for other projects. So flexible venue really describes what I want to do. I want to make it available to the public, either for, as Amy said, a pop-up show, or somebody that wants to use it Monday mornings to teach music, whatever. My intent is to continue my ability to use it at such times as my temporary tenant is not using it, because I use it as a music studio and I use it as an office, and that is a possibility, I think, under the description, to have a small office and auxiliary to the business. And I want to continue to sit on the front porch with friends and play music. That's my presentation.
Sounds excellent. I have a question about your sign.
Yes, sir.
Are you planning on it being smooth, plain, smooth, or rough?
Rough and black lettering in routed grooves, if you will. I'm starting the rumor that I own the oldest building in town, that the Great Fire of 1864 started there, and there were strong winds from the west and blew the fire down the hill into the center of Nevada City, and that was the one wooden structure that didn't burn. And after that, they started building with brick and more fire-resistant materials. But my building survived. If you look at it, you can believe that. And I'm beginning to believe it myself.
So there is no like proven truth to that rumor?
No.
Just a question.
I was told it was 1880s when I bought it from Lee Good and Tina, who I bought it from. Mr. Falcone tells me he thinks it's older than that.
It's
When I get a
cool
little
building.
time, I've already approached one of the members of the Historical Commission about getting a plaque for it. So at some point, we'll need to do the research and find out. Over the years, it has been everything that you can imagine, with a few exceptions, and I'll let you imagine those.
Thank you. Okay, is there public comment on this item?
If anybody would like to comment on this item,
Come on.
please raise your virtual hand. Not seen any.
Okay, with that, I don't have any other questions. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll move that we approve the sign as presented. I guess do we need to make two motions?
Yes.
Or?
You don't, because I'll just, real quick, for the findings, I put that it's, that you're making a motion for the sign, but in there, there's the planning commission finds the flexible venue business. Because there's not a separate application for this. This just is, it's stated in the allowed uses. So I just indicated that you guys are making a finding that it meets the criteria as outlined in 17.40.020 F of the city municipal code.
So I move that we approve the sign and find that this usage is consistent as described by Amy.
Is there a second?
Got Commissioner Cobden raising her hand.
I'll second.
She seconds. Thanks.
And I'll go ahead, oh, sorry. No, this is
Yeah.
my cue.
Your cue.
Commissioner Cobden,
Aye.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Commissioner, Chair and I, pardon.
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the commissioners and Chairman Nye in particular, and Amy for your work on that matter.
Thank you.
Look forward to you renting my flexible venue for whatever personal business you have, or city business.
Thanks for your thorough presentation.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to click the back to agenda link. So we're moving on to architectural review. Item 8, 215 Bourbon Hill Road, new residence over a garage slash workshop. And I live in proximity to the project, so I will be recusing myself. And I leave the chairing of this item to the vice chair, Amy Cobden. Okay?
Thank you. And just to be clear, Russell, I live within proximity to this project, but I do not own in proximity. Is that still okay? Russell? So hard when the screen's off.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I recall that that question was answered when this was on our agenda at our last meeting.
Okay, great.
Did
Was
Russell
it?
comment? I can't remember.
I think he did. I think he
Okay.
did. Yes.
I remember we had the question.
Because Commissioner Cobden doesn't have a financial interest in a property that's in proximity to the
Right, because we did
project.
start
Yes.
listening to this item. We were just
And
having
we were missing an applicant at
Yeah.
that time. Yeah. Okay, so off I go. Oh, I'll take this device with me.
Okay, Amy, can you introduce us?
Yes, I'll wait just a minute while Chair and I exits. So we have our applicant Brian Dunbar here. The subject property was annexed to the city in 2021. At that time, it was developed with 3 existing buildings, one of which was a 720 square foot residence constructed in 1954. That was approved for demolition by the Planning Commission at their April 2021 meeting. There are 2 smaller outbuildings located on the property. The property does not have direct frontage from Bourbon Hill Road, but is accessed via driveway easement serving this and the adjacent parcel to the southwest, owned also by the Dunbars. The Dunbars are proposing to construct a new residence. Eventually, they plan to convert the proposed structure to an accessory dwelling unit. Staff has advised that the conversion would need to come back before the Planning Commission because the oversized garage workshop is larger than the city's ministerial review standards for attached ADU garages. The size of the garage does not present any complication at the present proposal because it's being reviewed essentially as a primary residence. The front setback of the rural residential zoning designation is 50 feet, and the proposed structure is located approximately 46 feet from the northmost property line, which is the line closest to the street. But again, there's not any direct connectivity of the property to the street. There are intervening parcels. It would be located nearly 190 feet from the street due to the intervening parcel situation. Municipal code defines a front lot as a line separating the lot from the street. However, the configuration of this property is such that it does not have that direct frontage. So I'm just asking if you guys wanted to.
Talk slower.
I'm sorry. Yes. The reason I'm bringing this up is because if we define that as a front, he's encroaching into a 50-foot front setback. And so because he's not directly on there, I'm suggesting you could make a special finding that's not the front. And the only complication with that is that the rear line is defined based on the front line. So I would say you'd have to make a finding that that's not a front because it has no direct frontage, though the rear lot that's most opposite from the street would still become a rear lot and would still have a rear setback. Unless you would be okay with having all side setbacks, but that would be probably inconsistent with all the other lots around there. So just something, that's the only reason I'm bringing that up. It's a unique lot because it doesn't have any direct frontage. The planning, so I'll just bring up, yes.
I have a map of the whole parcels in the
Okay,
area.
yeah, I can.
That's great.
I can
Thank you.
also bring that
I'm
up. in
definitely
this
visual.
screen.
You'll find them very visual.
And I'll bring up the elevations also. Essentially, though, they're building a unit on top of a garage, and then we'll have some overhangs with one enclosed and one open. And, horizontal siding, single hung windows. And I will bring up the elevations here, and then if Mr. Dunbar has anything to add.
Can I ask a clarifying question really quick, Amy? Staff has advised that the conversion would need to come back before the planning commission because the oversized garage workshop is larger than the city's ministerial review. And so they would come back to the planning commission asking what?
Well, if they convert this to an ADU, so right now it's being looked at as a
Right.
primary, so there's no size limitation. There is a size limitation for ADUs that you can't exceed 250 square feet. Now, I will say, I think that might have been an oversight, because I think the previous version of our second dwelling ordinance, I believe you could do a unit above a garage. But when we revamped it based on the state laws, it changed to, you can't have one that's more than 250 square feet. So it might be just something that we have to relook at. But in any case, they can come back to the commission, even if it's an ADU. So generally ADUs are ministerial approvals. They can opt to, if they can't meet something, they can opt to come to the commission to get approval for something outside of those bounds. So that would be what they're asking.
Post-construction.
Once they convert.
Yeah.
So once they build a primary and this becomes an ADU, it won't meet the strict standards that are outlined in the code, so.
I had a question about that. The 250 square foot limit was for a garage,
Yes, yes.
not for the dwelling unit.
Right, that's correct, yes.
And
yeah.
so we've had a conversation that the garage, it's not really a garage, it's a workshop. And there's no connection between the dwelling unit upstairs and the workshop downstairs.
It's like a
They're meant to be-
enclosed
Yeah, they're meant to
workspace.
be separate. The idea here is that we're trying to make a rental available for,
Yeah.
the general public, and then I want to keep the workshop for myself.
Yeah, there may be other ways to work around that when we get there. Like I said, right now, it's not a problem. It's just, I just wanted to advise you that it would be something that could possibly jeopardize the plans, but
And
there's
and
probably.
what could be in jeopardy, just so I'm clear, I don't want to, I get confused. So
That-
what could be in jeopardy is they could not convert it to an ADU, and therefore they could not build their primary residence? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, although there's probably other things they could do if that was really the case. You could convert a portion of that to part of the ADU.
So that
So that-
that gets smaller?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't actually done the math to see if that would work, but you could go up to 1,000 square feet. If there could be other ways to cordon off
Right.
the lower area.
Gotcha.
Or there could be a way to just make a finding that, either way, I think it would involve coming back to the planning commission
Gotcha.
and not be a ministerial
Yeah.
process.
It's helpful, though, to bring that forth in your planning, so it's not,
Yeah.
Right.
it's not a whoopsie later. Okay,
Not a
thank you.
surprise later.
Yeah.
And so with that, I'll bring up the elevations and the site plan if you guys want to see it, but I'll bring it up with the elevations so you guys can kind of see. Actually, I will bring up the site plan just so you can, it doesn't exactly illustrate that it's not right on the street. Yeah, it doesn't exactly, but I'll bring that up and then go down to the elevations. Sorry, my screen's getting crowded with all the Zoom stuff, so it's hard for me to see. But you can see so the house is being proposed here. You show 30-foot setback on this, but I thought I measured something.
That's
Did you?
the old drawing.
Oh.
It's actually 46 feet.
That's what I thought I had
Yeah.
seen. Maybe that's this one. Oh, that's this one, okay. So there's an intervening parcel here, and then the street is here. So like I said, it's really 190 feet or so from the Bourbon Hill Street. And then it's surrounded by other properties all around there. And so these are the elevations. Let me know if you want me to zoom in on anything.
Okay, should we open it up to public discussion, or do we, I always forget, do we ask questions first and then open?
If you need to
discussion?
ask questions of the applicant, this is generally when you would do it, and
Thanks.
then open it up to the public.
All right, I had a bit of a hard time hearing. I think that maybe your microphone is not close to you, Amy? Or
Yeah,
somehow,
everything's fine.
I
I'll just
had
bring
a hard time hearing, so I have a couple
Sorry.
questions.
Yeah.
So the purpose here is to first build a garage and then expand the house?
It would be a dwelling unit over a garage/workshop, a
Okay.
720 square foot, that they would in the future convert to an ADU and build a primary unit.
Okay, and at the moment, the size that they're proposing would make it too small to convert to an ADU in the future?
The size of the ADU, the size of the dwelling unit is not the problem. It's more the size of the garage/workshop, which is limited to 250 square feet. So
So if they were to just build both at once and call it an ADU, would that suffice?
with the primary unit,
Yeah.
they would probably still have to have a special finding for the size of the workshop, either way. So they don't have to necessarily do it together. And at present, this is not any kind of conflict, because you guys are really reviewing this as a primary unit, because it'll be the only dwelling unit on the property.
So this is actually the topic of the hearing tonight. And this other discussion is about the future, correct?
Yes, that's right. So what you're seeing before you is the only thing that we're looking at. The only reason it was an issue is.
So this is the garage and the residential unit above it.
Right.
Proposed as a primary living residence.
Yeah, for now, yes.
Right.
Right, okay, got it.
The rest of it was really more advice for the applicant.
Okay. Any questions from either other member of the commission?
I did have a question. You said that the rear setback was defined based on the front lot line. Could you clarify?
Yes.
that?
So the way the definition reads, I want to read the front definition. This is why I feel like you guys have some deference to how you define it, because the way it reads in our code, the front setback, sorry, I'm going back to my, I don't need to share my scrolling. The front setback is defined somewhere in here as a line separating the lot from the street. So that's how it's defined in our code. When you read the definition of the rear lot line, it's the one opposite and parallel to the front. So you don't really have a line separating it directly from the street in this case. So I'm suggesting you can make a finding that this is not a front line. But then if we make that definition, or if we make that finding, you would essentially be eliminating a rear setback as well. So the way I've got it in here is, the way I have it, that because the parcel has no frontage, the northmost property line may be considered a side property line, and the southmost property line is still a rear property line because it is parallel and opposite the street.
May I have the map while we're having this discussion? Is there a map that I could look at?
Oh, okay,
It's,
yeah.
it's a little abstract for my,
And I would suggest that that's a very reasonable interpretation. This is really a matter of,
you.
you know, looking at the words and missing the intent. The intent is to have the structure 50 feet away from the road. You're 196 feet. I see no issue with this finding whatsoever.
And also, what are the requirements for the side? Just generically, what are the requirements for a side and a rear side?
So this is a rural residential, I believe it's 10 feet.
side and rear?
Oh, so rear is 25 feet.
Rear is 20. So
Yeah.
whether it's a rear, so the bottom line is the 33 feet meets both, either the rear or the side, so we're okay.
Oh, yes, yeah, it would meet that, yeah. Mhm.
Going north. So this is north. If we lined it like this, that's north. So yeah, this property line here is this line here. And we're gonna build a little
Right there.
right here.
And this is yours.
No, this is what's here.
And where's
This-
your second one that you
Oh,
own?
we live here.
Okay.
So
So
we,
you're gonna build here, and this is the driveway's coming in.
the driveway is, yeah, it's, I
It's like an
forget if-
easement on
It's an
somebody-
easement.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
so we use this driveway now. And then this parcel, we'll use this driveway also.
Okay.
And that's the
Gotcha.
only two units that'll use that driveway.
And this one technically doesn't have a frontage either.
Right.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And then there's houses, this is, Amy's saying this is kind of like the back line. So then Willow Valley Road's way over here, there's lots in between us and Willow Valley also.
Gotcha.
We're really
That's
landlocked,
a nice sized parcel.
yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
And so where you're building, sorry.
Pretty much right where your finger
Here.
is.
And there is an existing structure right
No.
there? No.
We demolished it last.
It's hard to- I think I got it now. Thank you.
I'm trying to bring up the, looking for things in here with my mouse, or with my not mouse. It's really hard. It's really sensitive. But I was going to try to find a map that shows the parcel lines and the intervening parcel lines. So you kind of know what that discussion was, and Amy can be a little more privy to it. This thing is so sensitive. Okay, well, this might be just as good as I can do.
Rod or Wendy, do you have any other questions while we're waiting on the map?
No more from me.
No, I don't think so.
And I don't have
Okay,
the map that Mr. Dunbar has, but I have, so,
Okay, there you go.
so this is his lot here that he's developing. This is essentially where the house is going. I believe, is this the one that was demolished? Whatever Google's showing.
Both of
Oh,
those-
both.
The bigger one was a barn that was
Okay,
demolished.
there's a barn and a house. I just remembered the house. So you can see that there's some intervening properties here. From the new proposed house, it's about 190 feet from Bourbon Hill.
Okay. Shall we open it up to public comment?
Anyone here for public comment?
I was nodding off. Richard Thomas, 214 Gethsemane Street here in Nevada City. I've been
214
privileged to
what?
visit the Dunbar's residence, which is adjacent to this property, which they're suggesting this be allowed on. Their aesthetic taste is exquisite, and although it's not generic to the decision you have to make, I must state that any project they're involved with would be of great value to the aesthetics of Nevada City.
Amy, that was someone from Gethsemane. I think you asked what street.
Okay, great, great. All the way across town. Wow. Anyone else? Do we have any online participants?
Yeah, nobody else in the audience. I'm sorry, I forget about our online participants.
Say again, I wasn't able
Oh,
to catch
sorry,
that.
I was saying I forget about our online participants, but if anyone out there would
Here,
like to.
I'm here.
I mean the public. If anyone out there would like to comment on this item, please raise your virtual hand. And not seeing any.
Okay. In that case, should we open it up to discussion? I have to say, I'm still having a bit of a hard time getting all of this information. This hybrid situation is more difficult than I anticipated. Doug and Wendy, any strong thoughts?
No, to me, it looks, I think the lot line issues were explained well. I don't see an issue with that.
Yeah, it makes sense that the interpretation of no front lot line is reasonable and logical. And if we're talking about the proposed plans, it looks good. I don't have
Okay,
any-
so this means that if we approve this, it will be coming back for architectural review at the next meeting or after? Or?
No, this is the architectural review. That's what you're.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think you're confusing what he will have to do in the future whenever he converts this to an ADU. So
Okay.
when and if, yeah, yes, yeah.
So this is a proposal for a building not in the historic district. It looks generally to be aligned with Nevada City style architecture, not historical architecture, that it meets those general requirements, and the neighbors are excited too. Or the not neighbors, the cross the river.
Community members.
Yeah, community members are excited. It looks,
At least one.
100%.
yeah.
All right, is anyone ready to make a motion?
Sure, I will move to approve. Let's see, where is it?
Motion to approve the architectural review application, subject to the conditions of approval, making findings A through C.
There we go.
From section 17.88.040, and as I mentioned before, the one about the front setback being now a side and the rear setback remaining the same.
Indeed.
And do we have a second?
We do have a second. I seconded.
All right, all those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Congratulations.
Exciting.
Thanks for waiting.
Thanks for coming through, Amy.
Yeah,
We were the ones that were trying to zoom in
Yeah.
last month from Brazil.
Oh my
you were in
goodness, that's
Brazil.
right.
I did not realize that.
We were in a lodge on the Amazon River.
Oh, rough life.
They had enough bandwidth while everybody was out doing their little hiking thing,
Oh.
but then they started coming in and started crapping out.
Sending
Oh,
out their photos to
man.
families.
How soon do you hope to break ground?
We're still haggling over costs, and
Yeah.
we've got a contractor, and of course, we have to get permit approved. Maybe March, April.
Great, yeah, congratulations.
Thanks.
Thanks for hanging with us.
You bet. Thank you.
I have not received anything from Unaboma, from Mr. Peterson. I don't think he's showed up, so.
You guys can send Thomas in, he probably knows, but I don't know.
Oh, yeah, he
He's
can.
out there. So he can officially hit the gavel for us. I know it's his favorite part.
Unless he just, oh, no, he's still here, right?
Yeah, he's still here. Oh, wait, I think you found him.
Oh, great.
Well, look at, he was so useful in his, yay.
Oh, but now I have to recuse.
Yeah.
Okay. I have to leave now.
Oh, no, sorry if it was confusing. Did- Yeah, I think it was, we had a very confusing goings-on here. So you were useful and found Mr. Peterson in
Yeah, I
your
went down
recusal
to,
time?
I went down to the store and so
Banged on
that's
the
how you
windows?
got the message? Good. That's great.
You can have a seat there. You don't have to stand out there. Good job. All right, I'm so glad you came back.
Yeah,
Not too late, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so, Mr. Peterson, this is your second meeting here, but we've had a lot of conversations.
Yeah, definitely.
Coming up here, so.
Email.
Mr. Peterson is proposing to occupy the tenant space at 300 Broad Street, located adjacent to the Asylum Down business, which is accessed from the same entrance. The tenant space was previously occupied by the California Gold Jewelry storefront. The applicant presented a sign at the September 15th meeting, which the commission continued and provided the following direction. Consider a single sign or encompass, this thing is so sensitive, and I just I don't know even where I went. Hold on, I'm sorry. I really need to get a mouse for this thing. Okay, so the commission's direction was to consider a single sign or encompass the two signs within a frame that is designed to relate the adjacent, to the adjacent asylum down sign with a similar spacing on the building and sizing to consider an off-white, and to consider an off-white border and lettering color as proposed to the stark white. And this one also, although I think you provided some clarification that there will be some retail, we have the same situation of the businesses services at the timing of the sign application weren't expressly indicated as permitted under the code. So I had Mr. Peterson fill out the same questionnaire to indicate that his business would, still provide walk-in traffic, provide sales revenue, broad spectrum to the general public, not weaken the concentration of, or continuity of retail facilities at ground level, and manufacturing or assembly or fabricating. It's technology related, so I suppose that would be sort of what you do there.
That's it.
That any retail for that product would be sold on the premises.
Yeah, production.
And so the applicant has provided an outline of those services to be offered, and that's attached to your report. And then he is also proposing two signs. My understanding is he did ask the sign designer to use that existing wood sign that was previously used for the Gold Country Jewelry, but he said it was too
Unusable, yeah.
Yeah, not usable for that. So he did propose a sign that had the sort of corner cutouts similar to the asylum down, and just putting them one on top of the other, and I will bring that up. And then he did change the color of the lettering to a Monterey white, which is a slightly off-white color, in response to that question. So let me bring these up so the commission can see that. And then I just got a picture of the asylum down sign so you can see how it relates to this. So that would be on one side of the door, and the ether and heptagon, is that what it is? Okay,
Ether and heptagon. You got it.
Heptagon would be on the left side of the doorway.
Okay, and so I just have a quick question. The use section, the red line, that's a modification from the previous, a clarification, I mean, from the previous application that we saw?
Yeah, so that was actually in there the last time. What that is, the reason that's in there like that is it wasn't in his original listing, but it was an email response he had given to me to that particular question. And so I just cut and pasted it and added it to it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
But yeah, that was on there before.
Thank you. Are there any questions from commissioners? Anything you'd like to say?
Anything I would like to say?
Yeah, just it's your turn to talk if you if you want to say something.
I'm just excited that everybody's on board.
Okay.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Long fight.
Okay, and is there any public comment on this item?
See, nobody in the audience.
No one here.
If anybody on Zoom would like to chime in on this item, please raise your virtual hand, and I will see if I can. Oh, where is it? See, no one.
Okay, so any commission discussion?
Not for me.
Commissioner Cobden, Vice Chair Cobden.
No, I think it looks good.
So I'll say my concern is only the sort of notch in detail is is nice, and thanks for the modification in your color. So I feel looking at the front, the entrance of the business, both businesses. The sign on the right side leaves a space of a certain number of inches on either side. So on one side of the doorway, it's framed by the column, that vertical, the vertical parts of the building.
Yeah.
And my feeling is that as a composition of both signs, which I think they should be considered that way, your signs are much wider and extend closer to the edge of the column detail.
Yeah.
And while your signs in combination don't exceed the limit of sign space that you're allowed, I think it tends to crowd that column on the left. My opinion is that both signs, and I think the two signs are fine, if they were the same width as the sign on the other side of the door.
Okay.
And I think it's like I measured it. I think it's 27 inches. Would get it very close to the width of the wood framed sign on the other side of the door.
wood frame.
Yeah. So that's my just so the two balance, like there are lights above both signs, so that I think some symmetry is called for, just to make for a nice composition.
Yeah, makes
So
nice, yeah.
if you hear my point, so I'm just throwing that out, and that's my feeling about the
Yeah,
aesthetic
makes
of it, and wonder if the commission also agrees.
But just to clarify, it says the dimensions of the proposed sign are 24 by 16. And so, but you're saying it would be 27, so it's actually making it wider?
No, narrower. I don't know if these are shown in scale. Is that?
I'm just looking at it says 24 inches to the left of that, so if it's, so maybe this figure is just not to scale.
It's possible the sign isn't to, this presentation isn't to scale, because those columns are like 43 inches wide.
Yeah, so I guess one thing is incorrect.
Oh, huh.
Either the 24 by 16 in the description there, or the image. You see the 24 by 16 there.
I think the sign maker would be making them at the 24-inch width.
Yeah, the sign.
So maybe then there would be more space than if they design it that way.
Okay, because I just, to speak in clear and, precise terms, I took a tape measure over and measured both those columns, and they're 43 inches.
Okay.
So so essentially, this artist conception is not shown to scale.
That's what it sounds like.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah, make changes.
I think that solves the problem. I think that addresses my concern without making any changes to your application. So any further discussion aside from my moot point? Okay, well, with that, would anyone like to make a motion?
So I'll go ahead and move that we approve, let's see, how do I state this? I move that we approved that the proposed business uses are consistent with the municipal code, and that the signage is consistent with the Modelo type of architecture as specified in the recommended motion.
Wow, that was such a beautiful motion, I will second it.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Vice Chair Cobden,
Yes.
Chair Nye,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, your sign and use are approved. Yeah. So I'm really glad you made it back, and you didn't have to, our little miscommunication was not a problem. Yeah, good. All right, thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you all. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Thanks, you too.
Best of luck to you.
Yeah.
Wendy stayed just to adjourn.
Just to, I wanted to hear the gavel, it's Tom's favorite part.
I won't comment. Okay. With that, we're adjourned.
We handled everything else.
Before hitting the thing, I'll wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
Happy
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, yes.
Thank you.
Great. Same to you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Russ. Thank you, Amy.